Hi guys, I'm Zizu Milana here, and today we make another English storytelling on controversial segment. This is how about why the Odyssey becoming box office masterpiece from Christopher Nolan, and also why some right-wing figures becoming outraged about casting. Well, I believe the film was absolute masterpiece, especially very epic regarding on Greek mythology, which Christopher Nolan has made this film, and also Oppenheimer got released, even though the Odyssey will become another masterpiece of Matt Damon, Tom Holland, and Zendaya, which become a masterpiece work for Christopher Nolan on that film though. And also, I've made a YouTube video about my storytelling about Christopher Nolan. Yeah, click here. So, but even about this film, some right-wing figures becoming a box office success, becoming Nolan's attempt, the epic fantasy film without CGI and AI. So, don't forget like, subscribe, and share to your family and friends. So, let's begin the video, guys. The storm began the moment of the call of the real deep, when Christopher Nolan announced his adaptation of the Odyssey. Right-wing media figures and online traditionalists immediately sharpened their knife. The outrage resented heavily. Casting strategy, critics accused that reduction of forced modernization and political pandering and targeting multi-ethnic ensemble to accuse a portray to ancient Mediterranean. The social media exploded with the boycott calls, claiming Nolan was sacrificing historical accuracy for the ideological point. Commentators ran hours of the continent predicting that the Odyssey will be catastrophic financial failure, another casualty of Hollywood culture wars. But some critics failed to grasp was Nolan actually an artistic vision. Nolan wasn't looking at Mediterranean through the Netherlands of the 19th century European oil paintings. He was looking at historical reality. The Bronze Age Mediterranean was interconnected, highly and diverse of North African, Levantine, and South European seafaring cultures. Nolan refused to engage online noise or release or defensive PR statement. He was letting speak to the set, the trusting the audiences, and so the role. The emotional power, the performance that projected on the six-story IMAX screen, the cultural war talking point will evaporate into the air. So imagine the director will cast the alien Page, who previously known as Ellen Page, who portrayed as Sinon, while Lupita Nyong'o, who portrayed as Helen of Troy. This would make the Odyssey was absolute masterpiece with inclusivity of the cast that would make generate millions or billions of dollars of that film though. While the internet argued about casting, Nolan is quietly was bigger war, the war against technological devaluation of cinema. In an industry increasingly obsessed with generative AI and cheap digital volume stages, Nolan took a stand to shock the studio executive. He committed that the making of the Odyssey was entirely a practical effects, relocation, and physical set builds. There's a no digital ocean replacement. When Aussie Deals navigated the treacherous strait, the actors were out of underwater on the giant, handcrafted wooden vessels built in the historical scale, where the crew encounters the terrifying elements of the ancient world. Nolan themed and generated a massive physical risk than a single of the screen. Nolan openly spoke out about generative AI, calling it an ultimate erosion of the human intent in art. He argued that the true cinema tension it comes from real physical weight, like lighting genuine film emulsion. The actors reacting to social danger and a tangible environment. He wasn't directing the movie. He wasn't pointing that the entire film industry. Machines can't replace human soul. And also, not just AI, but Nolan also doesn't like CGI on the film too. The right-wing boycott calls didn't just fail, they completely collapsed under sheer force of public incitement. Audience flooded the cinema theaters, and the numbers since Oppenheimer, and the word of mouth was wildfire. People were excited about the film, well, dangerously live, intensively real, and breathtakingly cinematic. Fearers who had originally joined the online outrage found themselves utterly within 10 minutes. The sheer physical relevance of this cast is a grounding reality of the physical sets and the raw of the tangible horror of the journey's silence of every bad faith critique. The Odyssey didn't just win the box office, it was dominated and pulling in the staggering numbers of a close-up demographic. It proved that audience thought for real, tactically unwilling showed up to prove once a filmmaker respects their intelligence and time. It stood at a crossroads and a modern culture, facing down the artificial political outrage on the one side and the call of the unwilling push forward AI generated content on the other, and it conquered both supplied by choosing uncompromising human artistry by standing firm on the casting vision and referencing a surrender digital shortcut. Nolan didn't just accept an ancient tale about a man to try and find a way home. He brought cinema itself home, reminding the physical effect about the world that human passion, a physical craft, the stories of the people, for the people. What do you think about Nolan Masterworld? Do you think a practical effect on the heart of you? Let us know in the comments below. So thank you for watching. So watching about controversial storytelling about the Odyssey, which becomes successful. Box office inspired conservative outrage on the casting on the citizen vigilante workflow because of Odyssey won the box office. So don't forget to subscribe and share to your family and friends. So I'm Cesar Milana and see you in the next video, guys.